Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk, 888-589-8840. Let's grab a quick soundbite on Detroit. This is Charles Krauthammer, because Sally Cohn, one of those left-wing pundits, trying to blame this on the Republican Party. They haven't had a Republican mayor since 1957. And this is the point that Charles Krauthammer makes. You'll hear Sally Cohn speaking and then Charles Krauthammer's response. Let's listen.
You know, I think the cautionary tale out of this is that a number of folks are going to try and use Detroit falsely as an example to push more austerity, to really cram more austerity down the throats of the United States, where, look, every study that supposedly said austerity and cutting spending in order to create growth was a good idea has been disproven. It has hurt England's economy and elsewhere. I mean, England literally can't even save the bathwater with the baby. And now they're going to try and use that to use Detroit as an excuse to do more of this. You know, look, Republicans, unfortunately, when the economy is good, they want to cut spending and cut taxes. And when the economy is bad, they want to cut spending and cut taxes. That's just their answer to everything.
Sally,
here is where we need spending to help. That's just the reality.
Sally, Detroit is not really an example of the failure of GOP economic policies. It's been run by the Democrats for 60 years. And you can decide all the studies you want about how bad austerity is. All you have to do is look at Detroit and you get an idea of how bad the absence of austerity is. It's a city in ruin. I think the reason that the administration is hesitant to even talk about a bailout is understands that Detroit is a precedent. The minute you step into a bailout in Detroit, you're going to get every city in the country lining up with a tin cup. And that's why I think even this administration is going to hold back from doing this.
That's the main thing, the main takeaway from Detroit. Liberals have been running that city for 60 years. This is not a failure of capitalism. It can't be laid off on the Republican Party. Now, I want to play a soundbite from Mark O'Mara, George Zimmerman's lawyer. And he was talking about the possibility that Trayvon Martin, who was the other individual involved in that fatal altercation, may have been using what is known as a poor man's ecstasy. So let's listen to this soundbite. Then I want to bring Jeff Reed in to talk a little bit about that. Here is Mark O'Mara, George Zimmerman's attorney on the Steve Malzberg Show.
Just do a Google search for purple lean or lean drink or lean drank. It is sort of an urban kind of drug. It's known in some circles as poor man's ecstasy or something like that. And yes, the main ingredients are watermelon, Arizona watermelon juice, a hard candy, whether that's Jolly Ranchers or Skittles or some other hard candy for the sweetness, and then some type of either codeine tablets if you can get them, or Corazine D, Robitussin DM.
And he went on to say it's an intoxicant and a fairly significant one. So Jeff Reed, my producer, has been looking into this a little bit, doing some research on it. Jeff, what can you tell us? Mark O'Mara, is what he's saying accurate here?
Yes. I was actually quite surprised because I hadn't heard too much about this beforehand, and then you started hearing rumors about it after the trial had completed, and so I started doing a little Google research, and you'll be surprised at how many rehab centers are set up for this. It's got a nickname, Purple Drink or Scissor. The most popular one is lean, and yes, they're absolutely right. I don't think the watermelon juice actually has any active ingredients that mixes with the cough syrup. I think that's more of a flavoring type thing. Another popular way to do it is with Sprite or Mountain Dew. But apparently it's been around for a while, but it started in the 90s becoming very popular with an underground kind of subculture of rap artists, and it became a popular flavored drink. Instead of a cocktail with alcohol, they were drinking cough syrup in this manner, and they sang about it, made it very popular. It became kind of the gangster type drink, and it is spread. It's quite popular.
And so you're saying that there are actually rehab centers that have been
quite a few
that have been established just to help people that are hooked on this stuff.
Right. It's very, codeine is very addictive. It's usually a cough syrup that's a mix of codeine and a histamine, and just the combination of the two. And that's kind of where they get the nickname lean, anyways, is because they say by the time you get finished with one of these, you're leaning over.
So you got this Arizona watermelon tea, which we know that Trayvon Martin had that night. Then they use some kind of hard candy like Jolly Ranchers or something to provide some kind of sweetness. Then they mix that with this cough syrup, which has got a high alcohol content, and that's how you get this poor man's ecstasy.
You know, I think this has come to the surface now. Usually after a trial, there's more things that do come out. Bill Whittle put out a video that's made this to where many people are talking about it now, and I've got a few sound bites for that if you want to hear those.
Yeah, let's run them.
Okay, the first one is Bill Whittle just talking about, well, let's listen to it.
We were told that Trayvon, again, an innocent child, simply went to the store to buy some candy and some iced tea. But it wasn't just any candy, and it wasn't iced tea. It was Skittles candy and a drink called Arizona Watermelon Fruit Juice Cocktail. If you take Arizona Watermelon Fruit Juice Cocktail, a bag of Skittles, and add simple cough syrup, you get a cheap codeine-based drink called Lean.
And that's what he's talking about. He's talking about that's what they found on everybody knows he went to buy Skittles.
The interesting thing to me, Jeff, is that, the meme of the left is you got a kid carrying iced tea and candy, and he got shot for that.
Right.
But what Bill Whittle is indicating and what George Zimmerman's attorney is indicating and what your research has discovered, it may not be all that innocent.
And the other thing with this, it wasn't actually iced tea. It was a watermelon fruit cocktail.
Yeah.
But I think the press was trying to keep that quiet because they thought of the racial overtones, so they were a little afraid to. They kind of suppressed it.
Yeah.
Anyways, Bill Whittle, and I went and started looking, and I saw some of the tweets that Trayvon, you start thinking, well, maybe they're jumping to conclusions. He may not have been making that. He may not have been making a drug called lean. But the tweets definitely show that he was interested in that. He had been online on Twitter trying to find out where he could get some codeine. And I think it was pretty close to the night that he was actually killed too. So let's hear the next one by Bill Whittle.
We have screen grabs of him trying to score some codeine online and instead being told he could make some using cough syrup, Skittles, and Arizona Watermelon Fruit Juice Cocktail. Seems a bit of a coincidence to me that the only two items he picked up out of the entire 7-Eleven were 2/3 of the ingredients needed to make lean.
Yeah. So, I mean, it could be a coincidence. It's starting to look like there was some problems. They questioned there was some problems with his liver. They're not sure, but the problems with his liver were consistent with this kind of abuse.
So it could be evidence of some kind of consistent or repeated use of this thing. So that's the question then. What are the effects of this?
Well, Bill Whittle says a little bit of that too, so let's listen to what he has to say.
We have a report from his autopsy that reveal a form of liver damage in this otherwise healthy young man just a few days short of 18 that are consistent with the kind of trauma that excessive lean usage does to an otherwise healthy liver. Now, most importantly, the online subculture refers to a number of psychological symptoms associated with the use of lean, the two most prominent being extreme physical aggression and paranoia.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the interesting point.
Wow. Extreme physical aggression and paranoia. Wow. So, in other words, that may not have been as innocent as the left and the media wants to make it out to be.
You can take a look through his Twitter interactions, and you can tell he was not the little 12-year-old boy in the picture that they presented almost daily.
All right, Jeff. Listen, thank you very, very much. That's a very interesting, fascinating information to get. And by the way, the family that George Zimmerman rescued, they won't talk to anybody, and you know why? They are afraid for their lives. They were rescued, pulled out of an overturned car by George Zimmerman. They don't even want to say a nice thing about George Zimmerman because they're afraid they are going to be tagged for turning George Zimmerman into a hero, and the bad guys are going to come after them. So they don't want to talk to the media. They don't even want to thank George Zimmerman for saving their lives. They don't want to say a nice thing about George Zimmerman because they live in absolute fear for their own lives. That shows you, ladies and gentlemen, the level of hatred that is out there directed toward George Zimmerman, who has been found innocent by a jury of his peers. Well, let's go to the phones. Let's start with Dave in Arkansas. If we can bring Dave in. Dave, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Brian?
Good. How are you?
Well, first, doing great. Hey, I just wanted to comment on the San Antonio. I went ahead and I picked up my phone earlier when you were saying to call them up down there, and I called them up. And a very, very cordial, very nice, come to find out, Christian lady answered the phone.
Uh-huh.
And I placed the burdens put upon my heart upon her. And upon that, she didn't really, she assured me that they'd had a bunch of phone calls. This is what really bothered me, though. I asked her, I said, can I ask you a personal question? Are you a Christian? And she come back and she said, yes. She said, I am a Christian. And upon that, Brian, she commenced to telling me that, I guess because of her work, that she just really wasn't, she didn't want to go there. She didn't want to go into the conversation of whether or not she was a Christian. And that just brought up another point in my mind, Brian, and what really made me pick up the phone to call you back was the fact that I feel like that's what's wrong with the Christians nowadays is we're not standing up to what's going on.
Yeah, so she's probably, and I really appreciate you calling them, Dave, and I appreciate you giving us that update. And so you're talking to a Christian woman, and she just doesn't want to talk about her own belief. She doesn't want to talk about this ordinance. She's polite. She'll take your comments and maybe promise to pass them on. But when it comes to her sort of involving herself at all in any way, she's not got anything to do with that. So I appreciate the call, Dave. That's indication. I mean, she obviously has been intimidated into silence herself. She's probably afraid that she'll lose her job if she says anything remotely supportive of a Judeo-Christian value system. Her job could be on the line. So she has now gone silent about her own Christian convictions for fear of what the homosexual agenda and lobby is going to do to you. We got to choose between homosexuality and liberty, ladies and gentlemen. We cannot have both. Back in 2.
Do you think you've done something